The integrated report itself, we're now turning our attention to that report, kind of the culmination of all of this. What we're going to look at is we're going to look at what are the 8 components that go into that integrated report. We'll look at some of the principles behind it, and then we'll look at what are some of the benefits and the challenges of adopting integrated reporting for your company. But this is something that it's going to be happening. More and more companies are going to be doing this, and as more do it, it's going to kind of snowball in terms of this is what's going to become the expectation. But we start by looking at the content of the integrated report. And again, there are 8 components. And just at the very beginning, we need to keep in mind that every company is going to have a very different type of report. Okay. Now, we can all say that a company has a similar balance sheet, similar income statement, but since integrated reporting is going so much beyond just the financial statements, there's going to be a lot of differences between companies. And so what is important to one company, what's part of their value creation, is going to be very different. And so this isn't something where we can just say, this is what it looks like, because it's going to be different, and what needs to be included is going to be different for each individual company doing this. But we have 8 components. The first of those components is the organizational overview and external environment. What does the organization do? And what are the circumstances under which it operates? Okay, that external environment. This report here in this section, this component, should provide information about the company's use of and the effects on its capitals, and how the organization's strategy relates to its ability to create value in the short, medium, and long term. Again, creating value in each of those time periods, how it is that we're going to do that. We should have information about significant factors that affect the external environment and how we respond to it. Okay, what is our response to that? And we're also going to have in some quantitative information, number of employees, revenue, where it is that we operate, any way that this has changed from prior periods significantly. But just kind of that overview of the organization and the external environment in which we operate. The second component is governance. How does the organization's governance structure support its ability to create value in the short, medium, and long term? Okay, provide information here about regulatory requirements and the skills and diversity of our leadership structure. Okay, and the influence that has on our governance structure. Okay, information about our attitudes towards risk, our integrity and ethics, and that culture and our commitment to that. How our culture, our ethics, and our values are reflected in how we use and the effects on the capitals. How those values and culture and ethics impact our relationships with key stakeholders. And how it is that our compensation and incentives are connected to value creation and connected to how we use and affect our capital. Okay? That's what's important. Value creation, then our compensation, our incentives should be connected to that as well. Our third component is the business model. What is our business model? Okay, what are the key inputs? What are the key business activities, the key outputs, the key outcomes? Again, off that diagram that we saw. What are our risks and opportunities? How does that affect our ability to create value over the short, medium, and long term? How do we deal with them? How are we reacting to those risks and opportunities? Section about our strategy and resource allocation. Where do we want to go? How do we plan on getting there? What are our short, medium, and long-term strategic objectives? How do we plan to achieve them? How are we going to allocate resources to implement our strategy? How are we going to measure our achievements and outcomes in the short term, the medium term, and the long term? Okay, all of this is important. Then we have performance. Okay, did we achieve it? Did we achieve our objectives? Okay, what are the outcomes? What are the effects on our capitals? Okay, this section on performance needs to have both qualitative and quantitative information about performance. Okay, it's not just about the money, it's not just about the numbers, but what are some of those qualitative factors as well? The state of our stakeholder relationships, our link between our past and current performance, and between our current performance and our future outlook. Okay? And that leads into our next component, the outlook. What are the challenges and the uncertainties that we're going to face as we try to accomplish our strategy? How does this impact our business model? How does this impact our future performance? What do we expect is going to change? What are our expectations about the external environment that we're going to be facing in the short and the medium and the long term? How are we going to be able to respond to those challenges and uncertainties? Okay, do we have the skills and the resources to be able to do that? And finally, our basis of presentation. How do we determine what was to be included? How do we determine what it is that we measured and calculated? What are the frameworks and the methods that we used to quantify or evaluate material matters and identify relevant matters? Okay, how is it that we came to the decisions that we did about what it is that needs to be reported? Now, as we're looking at this, we can see that this is kind of that value creation process. We've got a lot of those same terms. Our inputs, our outputs, that business process, our strategy and resource allocation, the outlook, okay, the capitals. And so we're taking that process and kind of putting that into our report. So these are the 8 components of that report. Now we're going to turn our attention to the principles for preparing and presenting that integrated report. We've got 7 principles that we're going to look at. First, there's a strategic focus and future orientation. We're trying to provide information about our strategy, okay, and how we're going to create value in the short, the medium, and the long term. The use and the effects on our capitals. It's not so much what happened. We know what happened. We can't do anything about that. Okay, what's our strategic focus? What are we doing? Where are we going into the future? We need to have a principle of connectivity of information. Putting all of this information, how they're interconnected, the dependence between and among all the different factors that go into our ability to create value. Okay, nothing operates in its own little vacuum. So how are they connected? Make certain that we have that. We need to have stakeholder relationships. Should provide information about the nature and the quality of our relationships with our key stakeholders. Okay? We need to talk about how and to what extent we understand and take into account and respond to our stakeholders' legitimate needs and interests. Okay, that relationship's an important one. How is it that we manage that and what is it that we're doing? We also have the issue of materiality. We're looking at things that are material. So matters that are going to substantively affect our ability to create value over the short, the medium, and the long term. Not every little detail might be interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting little details. But we need to focus on the things that are material, that are going to have a substantive effect going forward for us. We need this report to be concise. There's a lot of information that could go into this. And so we need it to be concise. We need to say what we need to say and not go on and on about it. We need to make certain that we have the context, enough context so that people can understand our strategy, our governance and performance without including things that aren't as important, that kind of detract from that main message about what it is that we do and how it is that we go about doing it. Reliability and completeness. Should have everything in it that it needs to, both positive and negative. Okay? Things need to be in there in a balanced way without mistakes. It's complete, it's reliable. People can trust what is in it. And finally, we need to have consistency and comparability, which means that over time we need to be using the same reporting policies, so that it's consistent from one period to the next, the way we measure things, the way we look at things, the way we're reporting things. Now, as our business changes, some of these things may change as a result of the business changing. Okay, but we shouldn't just say, oh, it's a little more positive this way this time, so we'll do it this way this year, and we'll decide next year about next year. There needs to be consistency. And that consistency is also then connected to comparability. Now, when we talk about comparability, we're generally talking about other companies. Well, it's a little bit more difficult to have true comparability with other companies because other companies are different. But we want to be able to compare to the extent that it's possible. And we want to be able to compare even more to the companies where those companies have a material impact on our ability to create value. Okay? And even within our company, we're connected to others. Okay? So it's not just one little company out there. There's a connection to other companies, other organizations are going to have an impact on us. But those are the principles that we have underlying the presentation, underlying that integrated report. So we've talked about what it is and why we're doing integrated reporting, looking at more than just the financial statements of a company. We talked about the capitals. We talked about how it is that we create value in the process of creating value, the components of the reporting, the principles of the reporting. And all of this leads up to the fact that this is something that companies are doing and more companies are going to be doing it, oftentimes driven by stakeholders, driven by shareholders, potential shareholders wanting to know this information. People are a little more concerned about how companies are impacting the environment. So part of that goes into these natural capitals that the company has and the impact that the company has on them. So we're going to wrap this up by looking at some of the benefits that we have for a company for adopting integrated reporting and some of the challenges that they're going to face when it is that they decide to do that. So first we start with the benefits of adopting integrated reporting. It can kind of be a forced form of discipline. Okay? We need to be concise with our reports. We need to have material information in those reports. We've got a whole broad scope of things that could be in there. And so we've kind of got this discipline to understand how it is that we do our strategies, what it is we're doing, how it is that we accomplish them. And that gives a little more clarity in terms of how we report things. Integrated reporting can help managers gain a better understanding of the relationship between financial performance and non-financial performance. Okay, it's not just looking at how did we do compared to budget, but what about these other things? What about these non-financial measures, and how does that ultimately, maybe not this period, but at some period in the future, impact our ability to achieve our budget? Internal measurement and control systems for producing reliable and timely non-financial information are improved. If we have to do reporting about this, if this non-financial information becomes part of our corporate culture, part of that decision-making process, well, we better have better systems in order to be able to get this information, to get good non-financial information that's accurate. And so we're going to end up having better systems for all of that. We may end up with greater employee engagement as a result of this. It can lower our reputational risk if people are aware of what we're doing and that we are conscientious about our impact to the greater world and our sustainability and all of that. Customers who care about sustainability may be more committed to us. We may have better communication about our performance and position and vision in both financial and non-financial terms. Okay, this results in deeper engagement and better relationships with shareholders and stakeholders. And it can help us communicate our vision of the future. Okay, how we're going to address challenges and opportunities, financial and non-financial. Okay, enhances the confidence of our long-term investors because we're talking about value and creating value. And how many times have I said the short term, the medium term, and the long term? So clearly there's a long-term element to this. It's not just what were our financial results last year, but we're looking at what are we going to be doing going forward. Now, it's not the easiest thing to do, so there are some challenges of adopting integrated reporting. It requires the support of the board of directors and the CEO. If they don't support it, it's not going to happen. Okay? We also don't have the same established reporting standards as we have for financial information. Okay? And so how we report things, how we get that information, that's not quite as clear. The understanding of what is a material issue that needs to be reported can be very challenging. A lot of this is firm specific. There might be an issue for company A that's critical. Doesn't matter at all to company B. So we have to understand what's material, not just financially, but all of these non-financial things as well. We may need to have an assurance opinion about this information in order to establish that our reporting is reliable, that it is comparable. And so we may need to essentially have an audit of this non-financial information as well as the financial information. Okay? But that's a little harder to do. We don't have internal controls over the non-financial data as much as we do over financial data. And so some of the reporting, some of the trying to do that assurance, trying to provide that assurance that our non-financial information is accurate becomes a little bit harder to do. And we've got all kinds of data that we have to pull together for this. Structured, unstructured data, financial, non-financial data, all kinds of places that it's coming from, all different forms of data, and we're going to have to be able to sort through that. Identify what's material, what's not material, what has significant impact on our business, what that significant impact is going to be. And so this isn't something that you decide, hey, this week we're going to put this in place. This is a process. It's led at the top. It comes from the top. The board, top management have to be behind this because there's a lot of resources to get the information, to start collecting the information, to process that information. But this is in the goal of being more effective and efficient as a company. Okay, more effective and efficient as a company. We've got more things that we're reporting than simply the financial results of our company. And so it's happening. Okay, we said at the beginning, this is something that your company may be starting to do it. It may be looking at it internally, but not reporting any of it externally yet. Okay, if you're part of a group, it may be a larger group is starting to do some of this. But we're getting here really kind of to, when we talk about evaluation of a company, not just the financial aspect, but the non-financial, which is the same thing as balanced scorecard for individuals. Being evaluated individually, not just on how you did with the budget, but how you interact with customers, how you interact with the business processes. Are you learning and growing? So we're just providing a more comprehensive process of reporting for the company, looking at more things to report about. It's not only the financial, it's the non-financial information as well. All of this with the goal of presenting how it is that the company creates value, how they're going to be able to continue to create value in the short term, the medium term, and the long term. I needed to say that one more time. But this is the capitals that are going in, the inputs, the processes, the outputs, all providing better information, more information for users of financial statements, the shareholders, the stakeholders, to make better decisions. And I'm certain, too, that companies that do this find they have better information to operate their company with. They're looking at things internally from more perspectives, which leads to better decisions for the company. And so this integrated reporting, it's not just about the money anymore. It's about all these non-financial things as well. That's improving the reporting. It's improving the decision-making both inside the company and outside the company. And that's what we're looking for, being able to create value. We'll conclude with this, being able to create value in the short term, the medium term, and the long term.